Hi everyone, my name is Zdravko Gunjevic. I am the Waterloo candidate for the Green Party. Thank you very much for having us here today, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm Stacey Danckert. I'm back again to share more of my experience and opinions and views. And again, I'm from the Green Party of Ontario and in Kitchener Centre. So the reason that Zdravko and I are here together today is because the Regional Green Party has the view that we should all be collaborating and working together so that we can make sure to have as much of an impact as we can and share resources, and more ideas at the table I find are generally create better solutions. So
I totally agree. And since I joined the Green Party and became a candidate, I've been blessed to work with a very amazing team and group of people. All five of the candidates in the Waterloo riding, like Stacey said, work pretty closely together, making sure that the issues that people are talking to us about and the views that we hear as we're talking and chatting with people are reflected in everything that we do.
Yeah, I really like that. So we're just going to have a casual conversation today, and we're interested to get to know one another even better than we already do and share our opinions with you. So hopefully it can help enlighten you about why we're here, why we're running, and some of the really great ideas that the Green Party brings to the Ontario political scene. So tell me a bit about why you've decided to run.
So it's something that I've kind of always wanted to do. It's always kind of been in the back of my mind. I'm a University of Guelph grad, and I took political science in Guelph, or at Guelph rather. I never really did much with it. I am currently an instructional designer with one of the tech companies here in town. Like I said, it's always kind of been something in the back of my head. I've always been very interested in politics and the issues that we face, especially the issues that we face here regionally. An opportunity came up to actually meet with Stacey last summer. So the two of us chatted over coffee and tea for about an hour, something like that. And I was convinced that I found my political home provincially with the Green Party. A lot of the values that the Green Party exudes are values that I share as well. And like I said earlier, like I'm excited to be part of this fantastic group of people that want to put people above politics, that want to do politics differently, that want to get rid of like the backroom deals that we hear about, especially lately, and just do what's in the best interests of the people that we want to represent.
Yeah, exactly. I may have shared my story with you on that day, so bear with me, but essentially the way that I came to politics was a friend. We were having discussions around a lunchroom in my office at the university at the time, and I was venting about my frustration about how politics was going in the province. Of course, I'm sure you've all heard that. I just couldn't stomach the idea of continuing to try to vote strategically or to vote for a party that I just really didn't connect with. Mm-hmm. And my friend said, well, have you read The Green Vision? I said, no, they're just all about environment stuff. I'm not, I don't think that's going to work for me. And he said, no, you've got to read it. And I did, because I trusted him. And while I was reading it, I just kept going, oh, yeah, this falls in line. This is exactly like you were saying. This is my values. Their values are my values. And it just made so much sense to me. And then eventually when I met Mike Schreiner, he convinced me to run as a candidate.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so this is my third time running.
Wow, that's awesome. One of the things that I really like about the Green Party is that we're not a single issue party like some people may still think. Yes, we have green in our name, and yes, the environment will always be very important. But there's three pillars that the Green Party wants to talk about, and it's people, jobs, and planet. Recognizing the fact that we can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, exactly. We sort of looked through a lens that says, if we're not taking care of the environment, we're not going to have healthy people. If we don't have healthy people, of course, we can't have a strong economy, which just kind of all makes sense. It's really interconnected.
Yeah, I fully support it. And like I said, it's one of the things that I found to be really exciting about the Green Party. I know for like myself personally, and you'll kind of hear me, pardon me, talk about this a lot is, vote for something that you believe in, and something that Mike Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party, always talks about is the only wasted vote is a vote that you don't believe in. So I encourage everyone to have a look at all the party platforms, especially the Green Party, and have a look at their vision for Ontario. Have a look at the promises that they're making or their ideas for our region as well, and see if that aligns with your values. And like I said, I found my home with the Green Party, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people would as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that one of the things too that I really love that the Green Party continues to talk about is this idea of a guaranteed annual income. It's not always immediately popular with people who maybe wouldn't be in the receiving end of it. But once you think through the type of impact that it would have on Ontario, and we're the only party that's really ready to move forward with it right away. Like that's pretty much our highest priority, I would say.
Right. And having a basic income guarantee would help a lot of people not have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from, not have to worry about where their next rent check is going to come from. I feel like it's important. Another piece of that too is there's a very large segment of our population in Ontario and locally here in Waterloo region who volunteer. So it's recognizing the fact that these people are working and giving them a basic income as well while they volunteer and fill some of these very incredible and important roles that our society needs.
Well, that's so true. And also really relevant here in Waterloo, we've got all these great startups, but of course people are taking such a huge risk when they engage in one of those, because at the beginning you don't really know how it's going to go. So giving people the flexibility to make those risks, you never know what the next big Google is going to be, or BlackBerry or whatever. You want to support these people through this. And as well, speaking as from a woman's perspective, if you've got children, you really want to make sure that you can provide for them. And so if you end up in a situation where you're on your own, you need to have the security that something like this would bring.
Right. And just speaking a little bit further to that too, if you're in a transitional state in your life, so whether you decide to leave your job and go back to school or look for something else, you have a buffer of that basic income guarantee. That again, where your next meal, your next rent check is going to come from, or school supplies for your kids. There's actually a story that I heard or read, on CBC the other day that was talking about a woman up north that was part of the basic income guarantee pilot currently, and she was saying that for the first time in her life, she feels comfortable. She's going back to school in the fall. And she said that she feels that she can actually support her family the way that she really wants to. So it's amazing to hear those stories. And that's just one. And I've heard of a few other stories. I know the Toronto Star also ran a story on a couple of people who are also part of the basic income guarantee pilot, who are talking about the same thing, that they're finally comfortable in their life and they're finally able to go to school. They're finally able to not worry about where their rent check or next meal is coming from. And
I heard the one on CBC as well. And the thing that stuck out is she said, I can finally buy healthy food. And, that's something that everybody should be entitled to. So I definitely, that's something that's high on my own list of priorities for sure for pursuing. But even if you move, even if you move beyond that, I think that, there's some approaches that the government is doing that, we talked a bit about frustration. The things that I'm thinking about, or one in particular that I'm thinking about, is the hydro plan, that I just think that it's so short-sighted, and it's going to cost you and me and all of our fellow taxpayers a lot of money.
Kids as well.
Right. My kids, it's $45 billion.
That's huge.
That they're going to, that they've indebted us to pay over the next 30 years. which we just don't need to do it, right?
Right, especially when there are so many other options that are available to us immediately. One of them including decommissioning the Pickering nuclear plant.
Right.
That would save $1 billion a year that can be put back into our hydro and making sure that people aren't paying these exorbitant fees.
Right. Well, and that one's not even very efficient. That one's only running at a 70% efficiency or so. Almost 30% of the time we're actually using gas when the intent is to use Pickering.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah. It's so it's old. It's ready to retire in August, and so I think that we should actually just move forward with retirement rather than trying to extend its life, which just it doesn't make sense.
Right, and a lot of people don't realize too that in the decommissioning process of a plant like that, that actually creates a lot of jobs for the local economy.
That's right.
So just because we want to say, close a non-efficient plant doesn't mean that we want to lose these jobs.
No.
You will just be creating jobs in different sectors of the economy.
Well, and certainly, although I don't know that we need to, I think a lot of the power that's created by Pickering is actually excess power for us. We end up selling it in really expensive rates overnight, for example. But as we do move forward with other things, then there are new opportunities for jobs. So conservation can be a really big key. I think it's a great idea to pay everybody, to give everybody the opportunity and the money to upgrade their homes so that their homes are really comfortable over the winter and it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg to heat.
Right.
And that's tons of great jobs. There's already, I don't know, something like 300,000 jobs like that in Canada that make about $92,000 a year. So they're good jobs too.
That's huge. I heard actually, according to statistics, I can't say that apparently, Stats Canada, we'll say it like that. During the last census, that's where that number came from, the roughly 300,000 clean tech jobs in Canada. That's more than oil and gas.
Right. Yeah. So as we're worrying about that, when we know we have to move past using fossil fuels, it's just not something that we can maintain at the levels that we're using them already. We've got some really great job opportunities on the other side. And, as long as we're supporting people in making those types of transitions and businesses, I think that could be really, really ineffective. Okay. So one of the other things that I thought we could talk a bit about is what it's like to be a candidate, because I think a lot of people don't really know the reality of the day-to-day for us.
Right.
How are you?
It's been interesting. It's definitely something that it's an interesting experience. I'm not articulating this very well. There's been a number of late nights, a number of early mornings, but on the flip side of that, it's been really cool, actually. I've met some amazing people. I've talked about, our local Green candidates like Stacey and our other candidates here in the region, some amazing volunteers, some amazing people as we've kind of walked around through the region. It's been an incredible rush. It's definitely a little tiring, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Especially when you have like a late night or you're doing a little bit of prep for a debate or even something like this right now.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you have all the details, but at the same time, I also personally, I want to make sure that I come off personally. I want to make sure I come off as a person, as a human, understanding that everyone's different. And just make sure that I understand their needs.
Yeah, well, and we don't have the same types of resources that the big three parties do, of course. We don't have teams of people preparing debate materials for us and, monstrous binders that we use for those debates. And I think it's just not our style to go through number after number after number. These are all of the numbers. I mean, we have numbers. They're on our platform. At the end of our platform, I'm actually the finance critic, so I went through and helped to work to create that budget, which was a grueling process. But I think that it's more important to to look at the bigger picture and really help people to see that it's not just the Band-Aids that we're putting on top of things to solve problems, but we're actually trying to create systemic, holistic change in how we're approaching things that makes such a big difference.
That's another thing that attracted me to the Green Party. And back when you and I first chatted last summer, and obviously in learning more and in chatting with Mike, it's about a generational change. Like the Green Party doesn't look 4 years forward to the next election only. So you see some of the other big parties only make big promises, you know, a year, 6 months before the election, right?
Yeah.
The Green Party's been advocating for a lot of stuff for years. Things like the basic income guarantee, pharmacare, dentacare, all that kind of stuff is stuff that the Greens have been talking about for years. And finally now the three status quo parties are picking up on that.
Yes, we love it actually when they steal our ideas, believe it or not, because we know that we're not forming government in all likelihood this time. We are really hoping and really excited that we may get a number of people, or at least one, sitting in Queen's Park. But we want them to steal our ideas. We just don't want them to screw it up the way that they did with the Green Energy Act, which was a great idea on the outset, but not implemented well. Oh dear.
So as you've been walking around, and I know our various teams around the region have been knocking on a number of doors and chatting with people on the streets, what are some of the issues that people have been telling you in Kitchener Centre?
Well, the number one thing I'm hearing is, please, I just don't want the Liberals back in again. And oh my goodness, I'm so scared that Ford might win. You know, I feel like I don't have a spot for my vote. That's what I keep hearing. And so, you know, people seem so relieved when I talk to them about our plan and our vision and say, well, you know, we actually are a real alternative. You don't have to stick with the big three. You can look to all of the parties, and people are also really surprised when I tell them there are 21 registered parties in Ontario. So it's not even just us. Just a bit of a plug for some of those other parties that haven't received as many votes. But then beyond that, a lot of people are shocked to hear about the expensive costs of nuclear and what that has meant for our hydro rates. Hearing that we're indebted sort of for 16 cents per kilowatt hour if we continue down this nuclear road, when really we could be doing cheap hydro from Quebec at 5 cents a kilowatt hour. Like
that's a huge
difference. 5-year-old could make that decision, I think. And yeah, what else? People are really concerned about things like mental health and affordable housing. I don't know. Do you want to talk about the affordable housing plan? Because I think that one's a really great.
So one of the things that the Green Party advocates for is 20% affordable housing within each new development. So whether that's condo, apartment, housing, to make sure that there's a home for everyone who wants a home.
Yeah, right? And we can't wait until the province can afford to build every new home, right? It's such a slow, long process.
Right. There's something like over 6,000 people waiting for housing right now, I think is the number that I saw the other day.
Yeah. And the thing that doesn't really work about that method either is when you actually integrate it into every new build, now you have mixed housing. So there are different people living in every neighborhood. So you get to see the diversity and what value that diversity brings to our communities. Because it's so important. And, when we get to know our neighbors, we can really see that they're human beings. And even though they have different opinions and interests and lifestyles, that we can understand how that humanity is there, right?
And another big issue that I've heard from a number of people is transit.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I know a number of people who commute daily to Toronto for work. I was one of those people a number of years ago.
Oh, me too.
So we used to drive, my partner and I used to drive to Milton because the GO train never came to Kitchener at all at that point. We drive to Milton and then take an hour-long GO train from Milton. So we had a roughly 3-hour daily commute, right?
I did the train from here, and mine was about 3 hours too. And I used to joke I had to bike, bus, train, bus, walk, and then I would get to my office and then reverse. And yeah, that's one of the reasons I decided to move out of academia, because I couldn't imagine continuing to do that twice a day.
Right. It definitely takes a toll.
Yeah.
But I fully support the two-way all-day GO service from Kitchener.
Yeah.
And high-speed rail as well. The provincial government has, finally put a little bit of framework in place for that after 10 years of saying they will, or however long it's been, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's what's really important, is making sure that there's long-term dependable funding for that. So the Green Party feels that we should be dividing our transportation budget into 3 pieces, basically. 80% spending on transit, 15% spending on new roads, and then the remaining 5% on cycling and biking. And what that means too is that now our municipalities can plan how we're going to be building bike lanes, trails, all of the transit locally. So it creates a longer term plan and a consistency, so that we don't get a bike lane on one street that's not connected to anything else.
Which we see.
Yeah, and that's how they've had to do it. Because if you get one grant 1 year for bikes, then you have to find a way to spend it, but there's no way to connect anything.
Right. Another part of the Green platform also includes giving municipalities 50% for their transit operating budget as well, which would also help them with their planning and long-term planning as well, right?
And take away some of the pressure on the ticket sales, so that maybe we don't have to offset quite so much and raise the rates, which we can't continue to do, or it makes it unaffordable and now people won't take it.
Right. So we only have a few minutes left here. So I thought maybe we can kind of finish off with a bit of a why vote for Stacey and why vote for Zdravko. So why don't you start?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I think it's just so important that everybody votes, full stop. This is the one time that you get to actually have a say on how your money's spent and the type of rules that are made. If you sit back and don't vote, you don't get a say, but other people will. So you might as well take your say while you can. In terms of voting for me, I do bring new ideas to the table and a new perspective. I do really want to see that long-term planning for sustainability, and that's not just for the environment, that's also for our finances. We cannot continue to increase how much money we are spending. Our budget, for example, includes the basic guaranteed income, and yet still is a third of the deficit that the Liberals does. So
again, another huge difference.
Yeah. So I really do hope that people will consider voting for me. I'd be happy to chat with anybody who has questions. Yeah. How about you?
Well, we have an opportunity for a historic change in this election. So we can look to see at what the other status quo parties want to do, have been doing for the last 25 odd years. Or we can look into the future. Like I said, I really support the Green Party wanting to look into the future and not just look at every 4-year election cycle and just, make a bunch of promises 1 year, or 6 months, 2 months before an election period starts, right?
Yeah.
So I, like Stacey, feel like I have a lot of ideas, a lot of positive energy that I want to bring to the table. Something that the 3 status quo parties, I feel like they've lost their way. I feel like they no longer listen to the people. They may say they do, but when I talk to some people at the door or some people on the streets, it doesn't really seem like they're listening to them anymore.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I know that the Green Party fully supports. And one of our slogans is people-powered change, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that we listen to the people that we want to represent, not just listen to the people that are giving us money,
Right. And refocusing all of our policies around improving the lives of people in our community.
Right.
And I think an extension of that, of course, is that the Green Party doesn't whip votes. So anybody elected as a representative in a particular riding would have as their duty, first and foremost, to be meeting the needs of the constituents in their riding. And that does absolutely set us apart, because of course we know that within the whipped vote system that every candidate who is not a leader has to do whatever the leader wants them to do, basically. Right. That's just not the case in the Green Party.
Right. And that's another reason why I actually feel like I found my provincial home with the Green Party, is because I feel like locally, like Stacey, like you just said, that the candidate, the MPP, can actually truthfully and truly and honestly represent me at Queen's Park, and not just, some sort of corporate vision that they want for Ontario.
Yeah, well, and it's easy. I remember asking Mike years ago about a specific question on a specific policy issue and being so nervous about how to answer it. And he said, Stacey, your values are the Green values. If you look internally and just answer the question honestly, you can't be wrong. And it took a huge weight off my shoulders. And it really did help me to appreciate that it's that perspective that we're bringing that I think is what makes the biggest difference.
And I'll piggyback on that as well. And Stacey actually gave me the exact same advice in advance of a debate the other day. And chatting with a few people afterwards, I was told that I came across very personable compared to some of the other candidates, which was, again, like I said earlier, when we started this conversation this morning, is something that's important to me. Like, I want people to know me.
Well, it's easier to be you if you don't have a bunch of speaking points that you have to hit, right? We're just saying it how we see it, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I really enjoyed our conversation today.
I know, it's funny. We see each other often, but it's usually just like talk shop and what are you doing later on for this debate or for this event? And it's kind of nice to actually sit down and have like a nice chat for at least a half an hour.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for CKMS for allowing us the time, because unfortunately the Green Party doesn't always get that air. We can be excluded from things, particularly at the leadership level. I know Mike Schreiner is excluded from a number of the leadership debates. So I do appreciate you, Kevin.
Yes, thanks, Kevin,
providing that opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you guys coming on, and good luck to all the candidates on June 7th. To echo what Stacey, and please help me say your name properly. Zdravko, piece of cake, right?
You said it right when I walked in.
Just like it's spelled. Zdravko and Stacey, both candidates for the Green Party in our region. And I did want to echo one thing I heard earlier, which was for all the citizens, residents, eligible voters in Ontario, go vote.